Unlock the power of your mind. This is Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today. The next hour is devoted to learning something more, not just about the world of shoes and ships and sealing wax, but about how, what, and why we believe as we do. A time for the open-minded, willing to challenge some of those old ideas behind what we think we know, who we are, and who we might just become. I'm Eldon Taylor, and this is Provocative Enlightenment. All right, our chat room is open, and my partner Ravinder awaits you there now. You can log on by going to provocativeenlightenment.com/chat. We do have a great chat room, so Ravinder, tell us all about it, please.
Yes, we have a great chat room, great conversation. Everyone contributes to the material that we're discussing, so I always learn something new. I'm in the chat room, but I also have Andrea helping out in there as well today, so do come join us. That is provocativeenlightenment.com/chat.
All right, I wasn't going to, but I am going to say farewell to a friend of mine. Over 30 years ago, I got started in the radio business with a man by the name of Jim Kirkwood on KTKK Radio out of Salt Lake City, Utah. He was my mentor, my friend, my supporter, and he passed on today. So, Jim, if you're out there listening, thank you. I appreciate you more than words. Okay, in this week's Spotlight, I wish to discuss the power of words on our brains. We all remember the old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, the fact is, this old stale saying is not only false on its face, but research has now shown that words can indeed physically alter your brain. Neuroscientists Andrew Newberg and Mark Robert Waldman have observed changes in the brain due to the words we use, including those that arise in our thoughts. Think of that for a minute. Words like peace and love can strengthen areas in the frontal lobe, giving rise to increased cognitive function and even arguably influencing the expression of our genes. Conversely, negative, hostile words like hate can influence the production of neurochemicals, increasing the production of stress-producing hormones. Additionally, angry words have been shown to interrupt the optimal operation of our logic reason centers in the frontal lobe. In their book, Words Can Change Your Brain, Newberg and Waldman report their findings this way. By holding a positive and optimistic word in your mind, you stimulate frontal lobe activity. This area includes specific language centers that connect directly to the motor cortex, responsible for moving you into action. And as our research has shown, the longer you concentrate on positive words, the more you begin to affect other areas of your brain. Functions in the parietal lobe start to change, which changes your perception of yourself and the people you interact with. A positive view of yourself will bias you towards seeing the good in others, whereas a negative self-image will tend you towards suspicion and doubt. Over time, the structure of your thalamus will also change in response to your conscious words, thoughts, and feelings, and we believe that that thalamic change affects the way in which you perceive reality. Now, in a paper published in the American Journal of Psychiatry, Martin Teichner and colleagues at Harvard Medical School share these results of a new study. Those individuals who reported experiencing verbal abuse from their peers during middle school years had underdeveloped connections between the left and right sides of their brain through the massive bundle of connecting fibers called the corpus callosum. Psychological tests given to all subjects in the study showed that this same group of individuals had higher levels of anxiety, depression, anger, hostility, dissociation, and drug abuse than others in the study. All right, bottom line. What you think, how you talk to yourself, the way you verbalize your feelings, all of this has a very real influence on your brain and therefore your body, mind, being. Not only that, but the way you express yourself to others may have a lasting effect on both of you. For years I've taught the importance of the thoughts we hold, our self-talk, that inner dialogue that goes on almost incessantly, because these thoughts can and often do become things. Our thoughts, our mind, can be seen as our best friend or our worst enemy, and we have the ability to develop it either way. Mind as healer or mind as slayer, it's really up to you. My advice, tend to the thoughts you have. Cancel those you do not wish to claim. Replace them with a positive set of self-affirming, life-affirming words. Look for beauty, love, and joy in everything. And when you catch a glimpse of it, hold it in your thoughts, dwell on it, enjoy it, and accept the miracle that life is. Now, one more thing. Remember that the research clearly shows that it is our subconscious that makes almost all of our decisions. So remember to work on actively changing the self-destructive programming that may exist there. Catch those negative thoughts and cancel them and replace them immediately with the thoughts you'd like to have. All right, your thoughts on this one, Ravinder?
Oh, this particular subject totally fits your life work. You talk about the power of your beliefs, and there's all the books and stuff that you and I are reading right now, the Schwab and the Newberg, that talk about the power of
neuroscientists.
The power of what you think, and that's what your inner talk technology is about. That's because believing in yourself does always matter. What you think has ramifications over your physiology, your life expectancy, your joy, your happiness, just over everything. So yes.
Well, and perhaps, just perhaps, at this particular moment in time when, half of the country is divided and disappointed and fearful, and we might stop for a minute and realize that the more we dwell on that negative, the more we literally injure our own being. There's a time and a place, and if there is ever a time for us to become united and give the benefit of the doubt, now is the time. And if there's ever a pragmatic behind it, be selfish, take care of yourself, immunize yourself by thinking positive. Okay, every week I read some of your letters as our way of involving you while paying respect to the very important role you play in making this show successful. Last week our guest was Professor David Hand, and we discussed his research and book, The Improbability Principle, Why Coincidences, Miracles, and Rare Events Happen Every Day. Leonard wrote, I really enjoyed your show with Professor Hand. Thank you for bringing us such solid information with so many great guests. Elizabeth wrote, I'm glad you made the point that true miracles may still happen. John wrote, too many people take probable events and call them miracles and then use them to justify everything. Thank you for giving Professor Hand the opportunity to clarify some of this for us. R.K. commented, poor intuition about unlikely events. I think this is common today among New Age thinkers. I have to admit I get tired when people claim validation for their ideas because an angel spoke to them by dropping a feather in front of them or in an unexpected smile from a child. Richard commented, people have a really hard time accepting the random, chaotic nature of the universe. I attribute this to a fundamentally narcissistic nature. CB added, this goes with a guest's description of how one can prepare themselves to take advantage of opportunities. The person who looks for opportunities will see more than the person who does not. Then action must take place or the opportunity just goes by unengaged. Moving on, Robert wrote, I ordered your book, Gotcha, as I have read all of your other books and I have learned quite a bit from them. I use you as a mentor, and so much of the information gleaned from your newsletters and books resonates with me, and for that I say thank you for being who you are. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Bridget wrote, I purchased your Inner Talk Stress in Schools for my 3-year-old who is going through a stage of her hating her nursery, which is attached to her preschool. I began to dread the journey and her crying, I don't want to go to school, Mummy. Mummy. You know, this person's not from America, right? Especially as I realized that I would have that journey to that school until she was 13. I now play the Stress in School CD on the way to school, and all I know is that I now have a calm, happy little girl who, according to her teachers, has blossomed and is more interactive and sociable. I've since purchased many other Inner Talk CDs, and my life has changed. I constantly talk about these CDs to anyone who will listen. At first I was quite skeptical, but now I'm a firm believer that they work. Good luck in spreading the benefits of Inner Talk. Well, Bridget, it's amazing just how easily we can change when we take a moment to train our perceptions. Do you have any thoughts on that, Ravinder?
It absolutely does. You know, I'm constantly talking to customers on the phone, and they're often surprised at how effective different programs are. You know, they try one out because a friend has told them to, or a friend has purchased it, or their parents have bought them, you know, for them, and they experience the change themselves. And sometimes the change happens in such an interesting way. It's like when I played the anger program, I played the releasing anger. I think I put it on for quality control purposes, but I happened to have something that was upsetting me at the time, and I just felt the anger dissipate. The power of your thoughts really is incredible. And when you get that sense of peace that comes inside when a particular problem just dissolves, well, nothing beats it, because it doesn't matter what the problem is. To that individual, that problem is significant.
You know, when I hear stories like that, and I'm fortunate, I'm blessed, and I want to thank everybody out there for sharing their stories with us, but when I hear those stories, I sometimes think of a time that I was doing a radio interview in Las Vegas, and it was a call-in show, and it started as a debate about the whole subject. And I was explaining, you know, how the mind interacts with the body. And this was many years ago, and, you know, psychoneuroimmunology was a word that, you know, even people in healthcare stumbled over. So, you know, we got this phone call, and the guy on the phone says, you know, I just have a real hard time believing you. I mean, you're going to tell me that one of these tapes will change the oil in my car next, right? That's how many people still see the mind and the body, like they're completely separate. Like, you know, we don't seem to understand that the way we talk to us not only changes the brain physically, like we discussed in the spotlight today, but these neurochemicals, this interaction between the brain and the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, the endocrine system, the immune system, that is the function of the body, for criminy. I mean, how can you separate them? You have to realize that it's that important. All right, moving on. Julia wrote, Inner Talk has rewritten all the garbage programming of my childhood and younger years. There are no words to describe how I feel now compared to how subhuman I used to feel. I can't thank you enough. And actually, Julia, you just did. Thank you. All right, that's all the time we're going to take for letters today. But I do invite you to opine by emailing me at Eldon, that's ELDON, at eldontaylor.com, or by joining me on Facebook. We sincerely appreciate your comments and feedback. Now to this week's show, the power of forgiveness and the four-corner philosophy. Many people ask just how forgiveness gives rise to increasing personal power. Many more find it unreasonable to forgive the unforgivable. They fail to understand that refusing to forgive is essentially self-limiting. It defines a person as a perpetual victim, unable to move on with their lives and or maximize their potential. It turns out that forgiving is freeing. It frees each of us, and the act itself is empowering. Now, some of you may well have questions about how this really works from a pragmatic standpoint, as opposed to the idealistic metaphysical perspective. And it is precisely this pragmatic approach that we will be discussing today. Pragmatism insists that something works in the real world here and now, not somewhere, somehow, someday. All right. Ravinder has developed some questions that follow the practical side of forgiveness and life improvement. This will lead us to what I have called the four-corner philosophy, a pragmatic approach to life improvement, real improvement in the here and now. So on that, Rav, before we get started with your questions, first please tell everyone about the gift you have for those listeners today. What is it, and how do they get it? And why would they want it?
I think today's gift is really important today, out of all days, or just this week. We are giving away a free copy of the Inner Talk Forgiveness program. Now, just like I described earlier, my own experience when I played the anger program, where the anger just dissipated. Well, when you get the Inner Talk Forgiveness program, just put it on. Play it in the background, play it all day, play it all night. You know, it's very quiet, it's very soothing. And you can watch those emotions just drain away, which is a lot healthier for you. It's healthy for your body, it's healthier for your state of mind. So it is our forgiving and letting go program that we're giving away free of charge. And you can get that just by going to provocativeenlightenment.com/forgive. So that is provocativeenlightenment.com/forgive. You can download the program right now, and right after the show, you don't want to play it while we're on the air, but right after the show, you can start playing it. And I'd like to hear, the types of reactions that you get. We get loads of these testimonials all the time, but just play it and feel better right now.
Right now.
Empower yourself, yep.
Right now. Okay, where do you want to start with your questions?
Well, I always like having the history of something as well. And, you've been questioned numerous times about forgiveness and why that is so important in your work. So I would like to hear the story of how and when you first began emphasizing forgiveness in your work in general.
Okay. I'm going to go back a few years, many years, I guess. I'm a practicing criminalist. And I have a large lie detection practice and some examiners that work for me. And one of the problems in lie detection is what we call inconclusives. And that can occur when a dishonest person comes in and practices countermeasures. And even if you see the countermeasures and as an examiner are certain they're lying to you, it's the instrumentation you have to rely on. And the instrumentation is just a biofeedback device, and there are countermeasures that will skew it, okay? Or you occasionally get that honest person who is just, the situational stress is such that it just causes, again, an inconclusive. You're unable to say they are or are not practicing deception. Well, I heard that the Los Angeles Police Department was using an audio subliminal program to dehydrate candidates in the academy as a test designed to be used during the Los Angeles Olympics if there was an abduction scenario. Now, this whole scenario would go like, well, you spent so many hours on the phone in negotiation, they would play in white sound. This subliminal message is designed to dehydrate the people on the other end, give rise to, a number of physical symptoms that would lend credibility to the story that would be given them, that they were in an infected area, they needed to be moved, this was to their own health benefit, etc. It was a way of taking control of the situation. I was never able to verify that or have that story denied. But it launched a series of investigations by myself that ultimately led to the patent of our technology, InnerTalk. But the bottom line is, once I had sorted through all the nonsense and developed this dichotic masked method, which is different than, what you think of as classical subliminal, but that's technical. Well, once I developed that, we implemented it in the lie detection business, and my inconclusives disappeared. So I shared the information with some other agencies, and they, too, began to employ the technology, and we did so until we heard from a county attorney that it probably wasn't a good idea without informed consent. Well, a friend of mine who worked at the Utah State Prison heard about what I was doing and asked me if it might not be a tool that could be used to rehabilitate inmates at the Utah State Prison. I have to tell you, at the time I was very custodial in my orientation, and I thought of inmates as, we incarcerate them. And in that process, they learn to be better criminals. They come out, they move in next door to you, they date your neighbor, and they practice more crime. So I was not really, I guess, excited about the idea, but I had a great deal of respect for my friend, and so we went out to the prison system. Charles McCusker, the late Charles McCusker, a psychologist in Utah, Lee Liston, who is now the warden of the female facility in Utah, and myself, and we set up a double-blind study. Well, the first thing that we had to know was, what are we going to put on these programs in order to rehabilitate? And so we ran some very serious psychometric instrumentation. We used the MMP of Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. We used a special lens, computer augmented way of delivering. The lens is known as a Fowler lens, specifically developed for incarcerated environments. And when we were all said and done, we didn't have any surprises. We had high scores in self and social alienation, which essentially is, the inmate has low self-esteem and even less esteem for you out there, the society at large. When we met with these inmates and we talked to them, because this was a voluntary group that we were working with, I get a different kind of a story. I get a story that very often, and I'm going to, dramatize it some, but it was, but for the grace of God, there go you. My daddy was an alcoholic. My mommy was a prostitute. The neighbor boy mainlined me when I was 8 years old. I mean, what do you expect? Society did this to me. Now, as I say, that's a little dramatized, but nevertheless, we had this uniform story that displaced responsibility, that blamed who they were, where they were, what they had done on someone, something, society at large. Okay? And, when we really looked at these stories, you could have, two brothers that came from the same home. One would be a physician in a teaching hospital. The other would be in the prison system. They had identical opportunities in life, same parents, same circumstances. They just made different choices. So when we sat down, tried to decide, what is it that we're going to do that's going to turn this around? We have to undo this displacement of responsibility, this blame. How are we going to undo blame? We came up with something that today I refer to as the forgiveness set. I forgive myself. I forgive all others. I am forgiven. We took those three messages, we added them together with some self-esteem boilerplating, and augmented a double-blind study, which simply means we had a group that was awaiting control, we had a group listening to a placebo, and we had a group listening to the real message. When the data was done, we had such robust results that the prison system installed voluntary libraries throughout it. Other prison systems copied it, and it basically changed my career. I was asked very many times after that, why forgiveness? How does forgiveness give rise to responsibility? And the bottom line is, there's two ways to be tied up in the world. One is somebody physically binds you, and I can't go anywhere. And the other is you attach a thread to a doorknob and you refuse to pull it hard enough to either break it or to let go of it and walk away. You're just as tethered to that as if somebody tied you in place. And that's what blame does. It ties us up in place. We can't take responsibility for a situation if it's not my fault. Now, that's not to say that you're saying as a victim, okay, this is my fault, because I'm not encouraging anybody to do that. But it is saying I have to step out of victimhood. I have to allow myself to forgive it so I'm no longer tied up in place. So I'm no longer trapped in this one area where my thoughts, my feelings, everything that I dwell on make a victim out of me. In order to get beyond that, I have to forgive. Now, earlier in the spotlight, we talked about the power of words. Here's an instance where, as long as I'm blaming, I am holding on to these negative thoughts. I'm holding on to this, sometimes attitude that I'd like to get even, or why me? And that's not healthy in any pragmatic way. You know what? We have a break here, so when we come back, I'll let you pick up the next question or pursue that in any way you want. We're speaking about the power of forgiveness. We have a gift for all of our listeners today. So remember to go to provocativeenlightenment.com/forgive and get yours now. Forgiving and letting go, it's a program that will make a real difference in your life. We also have a video for you in our chat room discussing self-actualization, so please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
Do you feel like you've become lost in a funhouse, only seeing the reflection of yourself, past, future, and present, but unable to find the real you? I invite you to step through the doorway and onto a pathway leading to understanding of your mind, your choices, and the influences that surround you. Read Eldon Taylor's New York Times bestselling book, Choices and Illusions. Now expanded, updated, and revised, it will provide you with real-life examples of how you can break free of your current perceptions and begin your journey to How High Is Up. Get your copy today from all bookstores or online from Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble.
Unlock the power of your mind. This is Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, we're chatting about the power of forgiveness. Now, we normally ask our guests for their favorite music that has some true significance to them. Okay, we just played some of Better Man, a choice of mine. I think the lyrics to this song pretty well explain why I like it. Sum it up this way: I'm going to make my world a better place. I'm going to keep a smile on my face. I'm going to teach myself how to understand. I'm going to make myself a better man. You have anything you want to add to that, Rev?
Oh, that totally sums you up. You spend every second of every day trying to make yourself a better man, and if ever you disappoint yourself, you go right back and work at it and hammer it away until any problem issues go away, and then you go and work on growing some more. So, no, that has to be your most appropriate song.
Well, I don't know about that, but I love
Plus
Ketmo.
the fact it's great to dance to.
I love Ketmo. I do. We saw him live here in Spokane. He's quite an entertainer, cool. For sure. All right. And we have a son who loves playing guitar, so, it adds all. It, makes it very special. You're up next. You, where do you want to go?
I
from
do. The next question I have for you, is regards to personal responsibility, because you define it somewhat differently than most people. Can you tell us all what your ideas on personal responsibility are? What does that mean?
Yeah, and that's a good question because I get asked it a lot. But the bottom line is this: most people think about self-responsibility in terms of, their personal space, shall we say. I don't think of it that way. I think of personal responsibility as in any interaction, in anything that I'm involved in, I am responsible to do my best to make that a positive environment, to make it a positive outcome. I love stories because stories stick with you. You can remember the story when you've forgotten even why the story, but the moral of the story will remain in the weave of the story itself. But this is a true story. I moved my offices from Utah to Las Vegas, Nevada a few years ago, many years ago, actually before I even met you. And my first experience in Las Vegas, business-wise, was really to make that daily trip to the post office. And I went to the post office, and everybody was growling and grumpy, and I mean everybody, all the customers, the staff. It was hot, the air conditioning didn't really work, there were people lined up outside the door, which kept the doors open. It was a really agitated group of people. And when I left that day, I thought, I'm not going to do this every day. That's all there is to it. I had the idea, I even thought, I must admit, about sending my secretary to do it. But that wouldn't have been self-responsible. So what I did is I decided I'd do something, that many people can think of as a bit metaphysical, and I suppose in a sense it is, but it's also pragmatic. When I went to the post office the next day, I tried to fill the room with light. I just tried to see everybody smiling, having a good time. I just imagined it radiating with, joy. And I had a big smile on my face, and I forced it, and I, hi, how you doing? Tried to be warm and, gregarious. And I have to tell you, at first, the way people looked at me, you would have thought I was an alien. And it was really hard to kind of keep it up. You do that, and somebody looks at you, what's your problem, boy? And, and it has this, but a problem, I don't have a problem. I just think it's a beautiful day, try and stay on that cherry. Well, here's the bottom line. It did take almost a month before things changed, but by the time a month had passed, it was a different environment. I would get there, the post office, there could be lines, people would be smiling, they'd be patient. I'd get up to the counter, and instead of that postal clerk, what do you want? Hi, Doc, what are you after today? Get your mail for you, or, everything had changed. Now, the story to me illustrates the importance of just simply saying to yourself, this is an unacceptable environment. What can I do to make it a positive one? I'm going to be participating in this every day. I don't want to come in here and walk out feeling like I just got dragged through the mud. My mood is now, no. So what is it that I can do to change it? It only takes one person. It's, one step, and things change. And taking responsibility, in my view, is doing the very best you can to make it a better world. Let's just go back to Kebmo. That's your place in the world. If it's nothing more than smiling, people don't seem to understand that the brain is hardwired in ways. When you go to the physician and he taps you on the knee and you get that knee-jerk reaction, that's because you're hardwired. Well, the brain is hardwired that when you smile, it releases endorphins. That's the body's feel-good chemicals. I tell people all the time, if you want to change your life, here's a simple thing. When you wake up in the morning, go thank you, thank you, thank you, because gratitude is really important, and we'll get to that when we go to the four corners. But it changes your expectation about the day. Instead of thinking, I got to go to work today, did I sleep well last night, it sets up a yes, thank you. Thank you. It doesn't matter what you're saying thank you for. Thank you for life. Thank you for a warm bed. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. And then put this big smile on your face. Because those endorphins then bathe your body and tell you, because the brain, again, is hardwired, I feel good. Well, smiling is contagious. It's like laughter. You can be somewhere and somebody starts laughing, and the next thing you know, somebody else is laughing. Pretty quick, everybody's laughing, and you don't even clue what you're laughing about. It's just a contagious kind of, it's an aspect of human sharing that is so natural and so healthy. Norman Cousins wrote in his book, The Anatomy of an Illness, that he cured his cancer, terminal cancer, watching funny movies, the old Laurel and Rabbit and Costello and Laurel and Hardy kinds of things. And so deciding that you're going to take responsibility to change your world is something you can do in everything that you do every day. Does that answer your question?
It does indeed. That's a fabulous story and really appropriate from right now, because you can really take that from two perspectives. You can take it from the metaphysical perspective, putting light out there, well, you know, but even if you don't believe in the metaphysical part of it, you have just the practical. What you expect is what you get. People will reflect what it is that they see on your face, and right now there is so much angst in the world. Put a smile on your face, say something nice to your neighbor, put up a friendly post on Facebook. Go for it. Make the world a better place.
Cool. That's right.
Fabulous.
Remember,
advice
we have
for
mirror
today.
neurons.
Uh-huh.
And those mirror neurons are, that's why we copy things that we do copy. So take advantage of them. See how many people you can get to smile today just by smiling at them.
Smile at them. Say something nice. Go for it. Between us all, between us two and everyone out there listening, let's just change the tempo of America right now and make it a fabulous place. Go say something nice.
And the wonderful thing about that is while you're making it a better world,
you feel better too.
You are immunizing yourself, baby, to live a longer, healthier, happier life.
Absolutely. That'll change your emotions. That'll change your physiology. Go for it. Let's do that. That makes me feel better just talking about that.
That's right.
So, yes, go share that. Okay, I've got another question for you. In your New York Times bestseller, Choices and Illusions, which has to be my favorite book of yours, and for anyone out there, if you haven't read it, you really need to, because it gives the great overview of Eldon's work in general, but it's the very practical applications of all of this, and that's always my preferred. So it is a fabulous book. But in Choices and Illusions, you provide us with what you refer to as the four-corner philosophy. Can you explain that to us?
Absolutely. All my research, the many, many years, and I date myself now, but the many, 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 many years that I have examined why people do what they do, how they can improve their lives, from the neuroanatomy of who we are to the attitudes, the mood states, how they all interrelate, from success as I've had the good fortune to work with many elite athletes, with Fortune 500 executives, and to look at the profiles of even more. There are four things that I think of as the four corners that make for a life that is authentic, that knows self-actualization, if you will, to use Maslow's words. It is that point where if I'm going to go today, that's okay. I'm ready. I mean, I've reached all that I could reach to today. Tomorrow maybe there'll be a new ceiling, but to today. That's a state of, a level of feeling that comes in self-actualization. The first is forgive. We discussed that. The second is be responsible, the kind of self-responsibility we talked about. The third is gratitude. Gratitude is so important. When I first started talking about gratitude, all the research on forgiving and gratitude hadn't been done. But today we know, just how, again, I come back to the importance of words and how they influence the brain and therefore then the body and therefore then the quality of life we know, our expectations and therefore our relationships, our perceptions, and therefore the vision we have for the potential that we might manifest in life. The point of gratitude, I guess one of the things people say a lot about gratitude is, well, how can you be grateful for everything in life, And I want to share two quick stories, okay? The first one is, I was taught years ago, when I changed vocations from practicing criminalistics to doing, more or less what I'm doing now, the development of intertalk programs to help people, the kind of research and so forth that we do, I had to move from being a sort of jaded person to somebody that could be optimistic, because I was not the most optimistic person by any sense of the word. And to make a long story short, I sought a mentor, and I met with her one day, and she said to me, Eldon, you have to change your perspective if you're going to change anything in your life. What you have to begin to do is everything that you see in the world, find some good in it. And I laughed at that. I said, Connie, you're crazy. You have any idea the kinds of things that I, dealt with and see? How do you find good in? And she said, Eldon, if you'll take time to just find something good in it, to just say to yourself, I can't wait to see what good comes from this, because you can't see it right this minute, but to expect that it will be there, it'll change your perspective. I said, okay, I'll try that. So I left Connie's and went back to my office, and as I was pulling into my office in my new Eldorado Barrettes, this guy in an old pickup truck backed out of the restaurant right there that I had to pass, broadsides my car. I'm not happy about this, but I say to myself, I can't wait to see what good comes from this. I stepped out of my car and started around. That little switch, just saying that, changed my perspective, because the guy standing there, this older gentleman, wagging a finger at me, all angry, accusing me of hiding my Cadillac, my new Cadillac, behind his pickup truck so he could run into it. Now, I happened to be two law enforcement officers come out of the restaurant. They saw what was happening. I ended up in the car with one, and we roared. This guy was crazy that I'd hide my car behind. Okay, so bottom line is, I've shared that story with a lot of people, and every time I think about it, I smile. It's if there's any good that came from it, obviously the good was I didn't give them all the muscle. There wasn't some exchange of yelling and screaming or more. My car got fixed. Those are little things in life. And when I think about that now, I still get this warm smile that, that was kind of crazy. Now, the other story is this. There's this story that I love about an old farmer. And this is during the Civil War days. And they're barely eking things out, he and his son. And one day his son's out early in the spring, and he's got the mules, and they're harnessed up to the plow, and storm suddenly comes up, lightning strikes, they bolt, and that old harness breaks, and they run away. Well, without the mules, he's not going to be able to plow, and the old farmer's dependent upon that, and his son to, they're barely getting by. And the whole town turns out, such bad luck, such bad luck. And the old farmer, he says, good luck, bad luck, who knows? Well, the next day, those two mules come back, and they bring with them a whole herd of wild horses. Well, the farmer and his son see him coming in. They run out, open up the gates, in they come, they close them up, and here are all these horses. And horses are worth a lot of money. And the whole town turns out, such great luck. And the old farmer, good luck, bad luck, who knows? Well, the next day, the boy goes out. He's got to break these horses, sell them to the army. And the first one he climbs on flips over backwards, breaks his leg, his arm. Well, now what are they going to do? And the whole town turns out, such bad luck, such bad luck. And the old farmer, good luck, bad luck, who knows? The next day the army marches in, and they subscript every able-bodied man, and off to Shiloh they go, where most of them die. Good luck, bad luck, who knows? So that gratitude attitude gives us that focus that offers us the opportunity to make the best of everything we experience in our life. The last thing, service, of all the things I've learned in my life, this is probably the most important message. I can tell you, and again, I'm going to share a story with you. You know this story because by then you were there. I had a woman come into my offices. She was suicidal, self-mutilation. She'd been referred by a local psychiatrist. When I looked at her intake sheets, I saw that her first healthcare professional was none other than Milton Erickson. I honestly thought to myself, if he couldn't help her, what on earth am I supposed to do? I sat there puzzled for a minute, and I suppose, I do believe that inspiration and perspiration accompany one another. If you train hard enough, work hard enough, and give an opportunity, maybe you get a break. And that day, I think I got a break, because I decided to convolute the model for this girl. And that essentially meant that I explained to her I was going to see her in what we call brief therapy, 10 weeks, once a week. And I expected her to do homework. And if she was unwilling to do that, she had to leave. I've got to hurry this story up because we're about out of time. But the long and the short of it is, I told her she had to do a good deed every day for that first week. She had to write it in a journal, bring the journal with her every week when she came in. The last thing I wanted her to do at night was to take that journal out and read what she had done and think about how that made her feel and how it made the person she did the good deed for feel. Then go ahead and go to sleep. Week 2, it was 2 a day. Week 3, it was 3 a day. We got it up to 5 a day. She didn't always do 5 a day, and at first some of them were pretty, they weren't the greatest kinds or ways that you might help somebody out. But what happened is it changed a pattern. She stopped thinking of herself as this victim, stopped thinking of herself as unworthy, started to realize that your true worth is not in what you do for yourself, it's what you do for others. It's when you put your head on the pillow at night and you get that warm, fuzzy feeling because you think about that person who you were able to go to in a state of need and help them, and how that makes them feel and how that makes you feel. It's when you have that sense that your life matters, that you're really an agent able to contribute in this world in a meaningful way, if to just one person. But when you do it as an active part of your life, all of a sudden, life changes. And for her, it changed. In no time, she was off of all medication. I followed her, as you know. Her life was a complete change. And it changed because she gained a genuine self-worth. I'm not talking about a false sense of self-esteem. I'm talking about a genuine sense of self-worth. And again, that comes from what you do for others. All right, I hurried that up because I want you to tell everybody once again where they can get the Forgiving and Letting Go program that we have run all sorts of research on and know for a fact is the place for everybody to begin in improving their life. And you're giving it away today, so tell them quickly.
We're giving it away totally free of charge, and it does give a great feeling of self-peace when you forgive others and when you forgive yourself too. It's amazing how much you can hold yourself back with things that you may have forgotten about, but they're still there in the recesses of your mind. And so go to provocativeenlightenment.com provocativeenlightenment.com/forgive. Get your copy today, download it, play it, and then tell us how it worked for you.
Okay, we're out of time. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed our show and will join us again next week, same time and same place. And do tell your friends, let's have them join us. Until then, remember, wherever you are in the world, believing in yourself always matters.
Provocative Enlightenment has been brought to you by Progressive Awareness Research and other sponsors. Provocative Enlightenment is a syndicated show and appears on other networks. For a schedule of show times, visit provocativeenlightenment.com. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, write to Eldon at eldontaylor.com.